everyone. Welcome back to the Luxury Rental Doctor Show. I'm Dr. Rachel Gainsborough, your host, pharmacist turned real estate investor. And today I have an extra special guest. Guys, he is a boss in the single family space, in the short-term rental space, and they are expanding into multifamily as well. I've got the amazing Nick Stageberg here with me. What is it called? The ebony to the ivory of the amazing Elaine Stageberg, who's here a little bit earlier with us. He is the owner of Black Swan Real Estate. He and his wife, they have scaled from 0 properties in just a few years ago and built their way up. And now they're at 50 short-term rentals. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Still 50 short-term rentals. Oh my goodness. In just a year or so. And they absolutely are crushing it. They manage over $375 million in real estate. Oh my goodness. So I am so excited to have this conversation. So if you're here thinking about, okay, is this really possible for me to launch my first? I'm here to bring Nick on to show you what's possible, to allow you to take a peek under the hood to see what the operations look like for something like this. And I'm here to light a little fire under you. So let's get into it. Nick, welcome to the show. Goodness gracious.
Thanks for having me here. It's a privilege and an honor. Elaine had nothing but amazing things to say about the time she got to spend with you. And I can't wait to spend some time together as well.
So, Nick, let's rewind the clock a little bit. What inspired you, my friend, to transition from a tech career into real estate?
Yeah. So I think everyone has moments, crystal clear moments that kind of define their lives in a lot of ways. And for me, I have a bachelor's degree in ministry and a bachelor's degree in computer science. I was in the enterprise IT industry for
Nice.
almost 15 years, did a whole career there. You get old very quickly in that industry. And I had the great privilege to get in the ground floor of a software development startup. And we went from 13 million in venture capital to 100 million in private equity sale over the course of 9 years. And then right before that startup sold, they terminated me and seized my stock options. And for
Mm.
a long time, I thought that was like the worst thing that had ever happened to me, the worst moment of my life. And fortunately, I came to realize over time that was the opposite. That I sincerely am so utterly grateful that identity, that thing was kind of taken from me, because it really opened my eyes to what else is out there. I had the privilege to go serve the Mayo Clinic, and I built an entire software development startup for them. But while I was doing that, Elaine and I, we built a real estate portfolio because we had done one investment property, getting ready for that startup to sell, and this 7-figure windfall. And what are we going to do with it? How are we going to not end up like those people who win the lottery and they're bankrupt a few years later? All the research said to invest in real estate because it helps with your taxes when you have like a windfall event. It's the most consistent way to create wealth that's accessible to most Americans today. So we did a proof of concept. We bought one house for $35,000, and the foreclosure had been abandoned for 7 years. We did a sweat equity remodel while Elaine was in med school and working all day, and I was managing teams of software engineers by day. We go to this house, work from 6 until midnight, installing ceramic tile and doing all this backbreaking and glorious work. But we spent about 17,000 on that remodel, got to about 51,000 all in, and then we did a cash out refinance. We bought it with cash and we put financing in place. It appraised for almost $100,000, and it was kind of crazy because when I was first fired from my job and lost those stock options, I thought I'd lost everything. And this investment property that we'd done, this proof of concept, it was like a stick in the eye, a reminder of the windfall that never came to be. But then we realized, we're pretty smart. My wife's a doctor, trained at the Mayo Clinic, and I'm leading these teams of engineers. And while real estate is simple, it's not easy, and a lot of people don't have the grit to do it. And at the end of the day, you can earn quite a bit of money in the real estate industry because there's a huge capital lever that you can turn with your time and intelligence and experience and money. And we made more money per hour working on this silly renovation project, this $35,000 home, than we had ever made in our careers in medicine or technology. As crazy as that seems, doesn't seem like it should work that way, but that is truly how it works. And so we said, well, if we can just go do this like 20 more times, we'll be financially free, and then we won't ever live in fear of being fired or disenfranchised with some business agreement or something like that. And so for 3 years, I think there was probably a good 24-month period where either Elaine or I was working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. One or the other was working. She was doing overnights and call, in residency. We had a new baby and then a second baby, and I was managing teams of engineers. One of us was working on that real estate portfolio, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for about 2 years. We put in the blood, sweat, and tears to build that portfolio, and then we got to financial freedom, and then kind of started to grow into what we do now, where we serve investors and stuff like that. So for me, I have probably an exceptionally crystal clear moment when I decided I'm going to kind of leave that old career behind and do something completely different, that kind of serendipitously came into my life. And I think that more millionaires are made through real estate than any other industry. You'd think it would be technology or medicine or law or something like that, but it's not. It's real estate. Real estate is the most predictable, consistent, reliable way to get to financial freedom, to become a millionaire, to become a decamillionaire. And so I think anyone listening to this podcast, can follow the path that we followed. It's not an easy path, not at all. It's a lot of work, but if you have the grit, the intelligence, the work ethic to get through, step one, to get through residency, like you can do what we've done. Absolutely.
So much to unpack here, my friend. Okay, so the security, the safety blanket of the W 2, the golden handcuffs. I mean, it seems like you had a really good, stable job, and to have all of that pulled from under you, it's something that I'm hearing again and again. I don't know who's listening. I don't know when you're listening to this. I have friends at the CDC right now that are really concerned because not only are they doctors, but they're doctors with a really secure government job. However, it depends on what's going on. That security blanket, it shows that no one is really safe. And so
That's right.
goodness gracious, goodness gracious. So to have something on the side, always be planning on what is your strategy on the side. We're not saying everyone go and quit medicine. I don't recommend it. I rage quit myself. You guys know my story, or I will let you know my story. Not recommended, but nevertheless, oh my goodness. And I loved where you said, you talked about grit, and you said it was back breaking glorious work. I love that. And again, the time for money trap, when you explained, yeah, you can have a really nice law degree, you can have a really great medical degree. You were running IT teams, very high expertise. You had all the certificates, and but the time for money trap, when you looked at your dollars per hour, what you're making with real estate, it just paled in comparison
Hmm.
to us clocking in and clocking out. And why did they teach us that? How come my husband and I were working 5 jobs between the two of us thinking we had figured something out? Why did they not teach us about real estate?
I don't know. I mean, there's all sorts of theories out there about how the modern U.S. education system was created by the Carnegies and the Kaufmans to create like blue collar workers. So that's why there's a bell in school when you're like in K through 12, because a bell would signal a change in the production line, and schools were built to resemble factories. And then the American university system was built to create white collar workers that could manage those blue collar workers, but would be working for a paycheck and not for an ownership stake in the business. So you're trained to have a hierarchical view of life, that you're always reporting to someone, that you're beholden to someone for for assurance, for acceptance, for validation of your quality of your work product, and you're on this like very linear kind of treadmill of progress of some sort or another. So if you do that for the first 25 years of your life, there's a good chance you'll do that for another 40 and go work for the owners of capital to run their factories for them. So I don't think that's actually a conspiracy theory. I think that is what happened, and then we just have a lot of residue from that system left over today. And highly trained professionals, they are incredibly industrious, productive people, but they often don't get the benefit of the value that they create because they've been raised in that system, so to speak.
Yeah, totally. And so, looking back to when I first connected with Elaine and you inside of our Go Abundance Mastermind, I remember distinctly, just like it was yesterday, when you launched the Single Family at Scale Facebook group. And so I was intrigued. I was absolutely mesmerized because I'm obsessed with single family homes. I'm obsessed with putting furniture in single family homes and renting them out as short term rentals. And I saw you guys were all in on the single family side and raising capital in a very like unique way. So we fast forward from that one backbreaking and glorious labor, and then you expanded. And so, with over 1,600 doors, 375 million in assets under management, which is incredible, what pulled you, with all of that long term rental experience, what pulled you into the short term rental game?
Yeah, so it's something that we always kind of had our eye on and we wanted to experiment with. We were having a lot of success with our long term rentals, and Gary Keller says it is the undoing of most entrepreneurs to get bored with what works. Gary Keller is a big mentor
Oof,
of
yeah,
ours. We're in Gary Keller's personal
the
masterminds for
one
Keller
thing.
Williams. I think that's pretty good advice, and you should be careful not to stray from what's working.
Can you
But it's
say it
something
one
that we
more
always want.
time for those sitting in the back? Say
Yeah,
it one more time.
it is the undoing of most entrepreneurs to get bored with what works. Most entrepreneurs, they kind of try different things until they finally, oh man, this is selling like crazy. We're making lots of money on this thing. But after you do it 20 or 50 times, you get bored of it. Well, no, no, no. When you go do it 100 times, 1,000 times, that's when mastery happens. Any human labor, any human activity, when elevated to its apex, it becomes art. And the real art of your vocation is in its perfection, its mastery, its continuous improvement. I think when you see that, it gives you a lot of motivation to keep going, to go do that thousandth repetition, knowing that it's gotten just a little bit better than repetition 999. So we are always getting better at running long term rentals. However, we live in Rochester, Minnesota. That's our headquarters, home of the Mayo Clinic. There is a staggering amount of medical tourism that comes to the Mayo Clinic. Millions of people a year come to the Mayo Clinic, and it's year round. It's not seasonal, and there are quite a few short-term rentals. And typically, someone will come for a checkup, for a day, and they stay at a hotel. Then there's kind of a weird, result from a lab or something, and then they get like a 3-day workup, and then oh shoot, turns out that you need to do bone marrow replacement or something of that nature, and you're going to need to be here for a month or 6 months or a year. And those people typically don't want to live in a hotel for 6 months or a year, so they find a furnished midterm rental. So there's tons of that product in our local economy here, and we had never really had like vacant units where it felt like it made sense to go out and do short term rentals that way. Also, we were pretty concerned about regulation, and Rochester put some pretty serious regulations into place, which I actually think if you're doing short-term rentals, you want to invest in an area that has regulation that's on the other side of that regulatory divide, because if there are regulations in place, it's not super likely that they're going to just like outright ban Airbnbs the way say Dallas did. I think that if you can figure out how to navigate that regulatory regime, you're actually in a much safer position than if you're getting into an unregulated market. So I really liked that. And the regulations that affected short term rentals were identical to the regulations for long term rentals. So we're already super familiar with that. Warren Buffett says you want moats that protect your assets from competition. So regulation can be one of the greatest moats that protect your assets from competition. That's a concept called regulatory capture. Regulatory capture. So it's kind of crazy, but most people think of regulations as this thing that like constrains big business from taking advantage of consumers. However, in 99% of cases, regulation ultimately becomes an advantage to big business, to entrenched players, because they're the only ones that have the sophistication, the resources to meet those regulatory requirements. Just like how Epic Software helped draft the Affordable Care Act, and so of course, meaningful use is a fingerprint for Epic Software, and all of a sudden, all their competitors went out of business because that's regulatory capture. So anyone listening to this, if you're looking at investing in a market, if it's your home market or whatever, and you're discouraged by regulation, I think regulation can actually be your friend. And if you decide to lean into regulatory capture, like every market where Airbnb is constrained, you get higher rental rates. That's just that's how it works. So those regulations became mature, so we felt better about that. And then there was this big story that played out in the U.S. multifamily housing market. So interest rates were low and construction costs were somewhat affordable, kind of like in circa 2020. And then a lot of developers saw that rates would be going up and costs were on the rise. And so a lot of developers, ourselves included, put their foot on the gas and built as much as they could possibly build. And around 2022, there were more concurrent units under construction than there had been since in about half a century. And we all knew that vacancy was going to be coming. In 2023, 2024, those chickens kind of came home to roost. And in our market, multifamily housing went from 4% vacancy to 12% vacancy, which is a really big deal. So 5% vacancy is kind of an equilibrium point in multifamily. If vacancy drops below 5%, rental rates skyrocket. And if vacancy gets above, say, 7%, rental rates plummet. So, for example, in Phoenix and Austin, Texas, rental rates are down between 7 and 9% year over year, which is just a staggering loss for those landlords, because you figure your profit margin might be 5%, and rental rates go down by 7 or 9%. You have a very unprofitable business all of a sudden. That's a $50 million business for a single building. So we were living that story with our large portfolio of over 1,000 units, and we said, well, what can we do with all this excess vacancy? We don't really want to just aggressively discount all of our units. That's not. I don't think that's going to serve us in the long run. We've got furnishings that we inherited because sometimes there's like staging units, and then we would just fill the unit, we would lease it. Or sometimes we inherit very high quality furnishings from outgoing tenants. We have premium properties, and they'll leave $5,000 of furniture behind and say, hey, we can't move it, it's all yours, which is typically a burden. But in this case, we turned it into an asset, and so we went and we just kind of used what we had on hand, and we furnished some units, and we started immediately generating revenue. This was de novo revenue, a completely new revenue source from our existing asset units that we were struggling to lease in our existing buildings. And we just started kind of putting like a unit in each different building to see which buildings did well, which units didn't do well. Different size and type of units, different styles of units, to kind of experiment with that and just see, is there something here. So that was in September of 2023 that we launched our first short-term rental. And then by the time we got to like June of 2024, we had I think over 50 short-term rentals by then.
Oh my goodness. And I just love the fact that there are so many lessons learned in this conversation. I see some investors that they have a property that is not performing. Okay. So the property is not performing. The way they intend on remedying that is by getting another property that's not performing. So instead of transitioning that property, okay, what are some other exit strategies that we can explore? That's exactly what you guys did. You said de novo, opportunity with that one, with that set of properties that were not performing. What do we do? How do we reposition it? Is there an opportunity here? What do we have in our hand? And you had some furnishings, you tested it out, and now you have an entire essentially sandbox, right, of 50 plus units in a year, which I call quantum leaps. If quantum leap was an
Hmm.
example, right, that's it right there. So that's some rapid growth in just 1 year. So I would love for you to share with our audience, our audience, they love some frameworks, some tangible takeaways. What would you say one or two key lessons for you would be from that hyper growth in that short-term rental phase?
Yeah. So everyone has a different set of problems they're trying to solve and a different set of resources they have to bring to bear. So our kind of constellation of those things might be different than other people out there. But I would encourage everyone to ask those questions. So someone might be thinking, okay, I want to go buy a $1 million beach house that sleeps 50 people, and I can visit it and have enjoy that property when it's not being rented and stuff like that. That's a very different set of problems they're trying to solve than we have. Where essentially we have some free units, and any revenue we generate is just free money, because we probably would not be able to fill those units otherwise. We have some extra furnishings laying around, but we have this very interesting challenge that listeners probably don't have, which is that because we run a large business already, if we develop a new line of business, it needs to be a pretty large line of business in order for it to be efficient for us to operate. So, like if you're kind of a solopreneur, you can go run one, two, three short-term rentals and do quite well with that, responding to communication on your own, managing issues and stuff like that. You have some cleaners that manage turnovers. We cannot compete with those individuals. We have to have $1 million line of business for it to be feasible to operate within our company. Otherwise, like our overheads just eat us alive. So we have to have full time employees that manage all the communication, that are bringing the units online. So if there's not enough work for a full time employee just in bringing units online, well, it's probably not a good business for us to pursue. So you should always be asking yourself, what's your unfair advantage, your asymmetric advantage? What resources can you bring? What liabilities can you mitigate? So we get free units. That's a huge advantage that most people don't have, but we don't have free labor, and our minimum scale to be viable is huge. It's a big challenge for us. And lots of people out there, they have free units, right? You have like a an ADU or some other situation like that that's at your disposal. So you might have a free unit, and one way or another, you probably have some free labor available to you. Worth mentioning that Elaine and we would bring our kids out, and we personally furnished our first few rentals. We believe in going to the Gemba, the place of real work. That's a Japanese concept. Like if you're a an executive at Toyota, you would never ever make a decision about the business in a conference room. You would go to the factory floor, and in the place of real work, you would meet with other executives and workers and figure out, okay, what do we need to do to improve the production line or to launch this new model or something like that. So we would literally go to these units that we were furnishing in the evening, because we're running our main business during the day, and we pick up our kids from school, our five kids, and then go let our kids rip open boxes and play with bubble wrap, and pick out what knives we liked and what Keurig coffee maker we liked and stuff like that. And we made use of our free labor that way, so to speak, and we just made it fun. So for us, for anyone listening to this, I would certainly encourage you to think about what markets do you have knowledge of, what areas do you have resources, human resources, experience, capital. Maybe you're a high income professional, and so you're able to leverage a really favorable lending instrument. So in our case, we are not able to get a very favorable lending instrument. In fact, putting short-term rentals in our apartment buildings makes us eligible for significantly worse debt. Apartment buildings are normally eligible for very favorable debt, and by putting a lot of short-term rentals into our buildings, we get worse debt at like a higher interest rate and a worse LTV. So our short-term rentals have to produce mega income, compared to long-term rentals in order for it to justify the worst lending terms we get. So you just have to think really carefully about what are the unique advantages and disadvantages, your strengths and weaknesses that you bring to the table when you're looking at launching something like this.
I love that you shared what it looks like to have paid labor, free labor, resources, and things like that. What would you say are some of the systems or tech tools or operational frameworks or workflows that really helped make that scale sustainable? Again, I know the family's grown. You're a parent, a dad of five beautiful kiddos. So, nevertheless, it's got to be really busy. For those who are busy, thinking about how do you keep your sanity with all that's going on? Are there any tools or technology that you're using to run your short-term rentals alongside your labor?
Absolutely. So I'm a big operations person. We could just talk about this for the rest of our
Yes.
time together if you want. We started out with just Airbnb. I think that's a great place to start. It's typically the most dominant platform in any market. It's a decent, kind of operations platform. There's a million different tools out there. Um, I'm a tech guy, so we of course use a lot of technology. We give really high quality media. That's certainly the most important kind of marketing piece there. It's important to know the Airbnb system inside and out, how its scoring systems work, how you're ranked in the algorithm. So go do that research. Make sure that you're filling that out to the best of your ability. We have the Schlag encode system. So that's the Wi-Fi lock. I'd say, in my observation, it's the most ubiquitous electronic lock system. It does not need a Z-Wave or Bluetooth adapter or anything like that. So most softwares integrate it with it. It integrate with it natively, and you can automatically set the code to the last four digits of the guest's phone number or something like that, and automatically activates and deactivates that at the appropriate time. So we would use those keypad locks, and that was the very first thing we did. We never handed a set of keys to a guest. We tried a few different platforms. So we started out using Resman. I'm sorry, now I'm thinking about a long-term rental here. I actually can't think of the name of
Onerous?
it. Onerez, there we go.
Okay.
And I think that's like a good starter platform. It's very
Hmm.
accessible, very affordable. And then after we got a fair number of units, we switched to Guesty for pros. I think that's a pretty good platform. It all depends on what you're trying to use it for. The killer feature for us, and this is a really important concept. Guesty for pros they have the concept of a multi-unit, so you can have multiple identical units in a group, and so you just have one listing, and then you have many units behind it, and then you can kind of Tetris your bookings together, and that would allow us to get up to like like a 98, 99% occupancy rate on our units. And it allows you to always be open for long bookings, because if you get like a 1 day booking, you kind of slot it in with some other 1 day bookings. And then that you always have a unit that's open for long bookings. And because we had apartment units, we were able to get identical apartment units that slotted together. And it is, very few systems support that concept, that multi-unit concept, and you can syndicate those to Airbnb, VRBO, Booking.com, all the different platforms. So that was extremely, extremely valuable. That was like a key thing. It allowed us to get a lot of 6-month bookings and stuff, which for us is what was very profitable, because our labor is so expensive. Doing turns and touches and stuff is so expensive. We'd much rather get a 6-month booking at a lower rate than daily turns at a higher rate. Um, we used a lot of kind of technology in our day to day. We had an inspection software that we used to do like video inspections and stuff like that, uh, for turns. Although we quickly figured out that it was rare enough for there to be damage that we needed documentation to get reimbursed by air cover for, that it was actually more expensive to pay our team to do those inspections. So we just stopped doing inspections and just knew that a certain percentage of the time we would, have someone ruin a couch or something like that. And we just couldn't do anything about that. And even though there is technology and tools available for it, you have to think about what are your overheads, what are your run costs and stuff like that. And in many cases, it was better for us to just kind of take the loss on that. We had lots of really good like walkthroughs of how to check in, because someone had to get into like a secured building. They'd have to park in a specific location. These are urban core environments and stuff like that. We would do lots of in technology. It's called hallway testing. That's where you walk out to someone in the hallway and have them run through your thing and give you feedback on it, because in your mind, with the knowledge that you have, your instructions or whatever it is that you're putting together, it makes sense. But to someone who's never encountered it before, it might seem very strange or foreign, or there's a gap. So if you're trying to check into our unit for the first time, what is that user experience? So we'd literally have strangers walk through that for us, just to give us feedback on how does it go when you go through this. And that allowed us to make a huge number of improvements to our systems, to the types of photos we would show, the types of written instructions we would give. We did hyper aggressive messaging. So you would get tons of emails, on platform messages, text messages. Those are automated messages that go out from Guesty, though most platforms have those automated messages that have those check-in instructions, the Wi-Fi. Anytime someone asked a question 3 times, like 3 different guests would ask a question, that told us we had to say that again. So like the Wi-Fi would be in the Airbnb app, it would be on the Guesty platform, it would be on the door, like the back door to the property. It would be like, you'd be looking at it when you first walked in. There'd be a little sign on the toilet. So if you're sitting on the toilet, you'd look at the sign. I mean, it would be in like 8 different places. People would still ask us for the Wi-Fi, and we're like, great.
Right.
We do have that in front of the toilet on the back door. The first thing you see when you walk in, it's in the last message that we sent you, and it's in your email inbox, and it's on the platform. But
Get a
the password is
tattoo.
123. So we did lots of that. There's lots of predatory platforms out there that I really don't like. So there's like routers that will collect guest contact information. They kind of charge like I think an outsized licensing fee. There's different lock management systems. There's different pricing systems that charge. We used Price Labs for dynamic pricing. Guesty, we negotiated the cost down a little bit. I think it's like $50 per unit per month to get all their features. So altogether, I think our total software cost was maybe $75 per unit per month. wasn't terrible. But there's lots of people out there who are trying to collect money from you for various automation pieces, software pieces. You have to be wary of that, because a lot of times they have contracts. It's hard to get out, and then once you're on that platform, it's very hard to get off, because you have bookings that might be kind of locked into that are hard to unwind. So okay, so that was many minutes on some of our
So good.
operation,
No, no,
but
no.
yeah.
Like we should have a whole other episode for this, because this is so good. And if we could unpack some of those things you shared with us, your tech cost per property, the tech creep is real, and everyone wants a piece of this Airbnb pie. They recognize it's highly profitable. Can you imagine, Nick, how many solicitations that I get every single day sliding into my inbox? I just got one today from LinkedIn. Hey, Dr. Rachel, I've got a new thing for a revenue manager out someone just created something in their basement and they want me to test it out. And so you got to be really strategic and lean into the ones that you know. If you're familiar with one tool for market analysis, go in, understand the platform. For those sitting in the back, Nick says become very familiar with the Airbnb platform because there are algorithms, there are ways to make sure that you are bubbling to the top and you're not on page 17. But if you spread yourself too thin, getting on every single platform from the first day, you don't have that mastery for that one platform. Our tech stack is about $58. I need to recheck it. I need to do a tech audit, like a cost audit for all of our tech. But last time I checked, it was $58 per unit. You said yours is 75, so maybe I believe ours creeped up. There's so many little ones that they bill quarterly or annually. They slip through the cracks, but that is something to be mindful of. Is your technology stack? Another thing that you said, and I just don't want the audience to miss it, is for your longer length of stays, that 6 month guest, your operational costs are reduced. And I couldn't agree with you more. So for my short-term rentals, like 2 night stays, 2 nights peppered here or there, 2 nights, 2 nights, 2 nights, my operational costs are around the 40% OPEX. For my midterm stays that are 3 6 months, it's about 18% OPEX when I look at the entire year, meaning a nice big chunk is getting ate up by short-term rentals. So we love to transition. Once we get all of our tax benefits, we'll go ahead and transition to midterm rentals. So I couldn't agree with you more. The new thing that you mentioned to me today, and my takeaway, because I'm learning from this too, is the hallway testing. Hello. How many times did I provide the instructions? 32 times, and I've got the map and everything looks great. And I show it to my son. He's like, this doesn't even make sense.
Mhm. And
Right?
try
The
people who are
hallway
different ages and
testing.
different backgrounds. It's
Hmm.
very interesting the feedback you get. They're like, "Well, which door?" And you're like, "The door that's right in front of you." And they're like, "Oh, okay. Well, you should say the door that's right in front of you."
Yeah.
Okay, I thought I didn't think I would need to say that, but okay, I'll say the door that's right in front of you instead of the door.
Oh my goodness. Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. So let's talk about, we don't often get woo in this podcast. I'm not the most woo girl, I'm more of a spreadsheet girl. But nevertheless, but what was that operational like mindset for you that changed from, okay, we've got this handful of properties that we're managing, we're doing it, we're performing well. Elaine and I, we've got our own portfolio to boom, we're like a leading high performing entire real estate firm. Like, how do you go from there to here?
Yeah, so with my background in technology, I have a lot of clarity on that. I'm a very woo person. I'm all into mindset, but in this case, I think it's a very kind of practical thing. So in business, you're growing or you're dying. That's all there is to it. There's never a stable state. I think a lot of people have this vision of, oh, if I just had, I don't know, 20 units, I would have financial freedom. If I just had 100,000 a year in passive income, I would have financial freedom. And these are not just bad goals. They're the essence of unhappiness is unmet expectations. You are never going to meet those expectations. In business, you are either growing or you're dying. And in my experience, it's often easier to grow fast than it is to grow slow. A lot of people say, like 10x is easier than 2x or whatever. I think a 10x mindset is powerful, but I actually think 2x is a really good target. You should always be asking yourself, well, what can we do to like double? And what does that look like? What does our staffing look like? What does our capital look like? What does our time, our calendar look like? And then work backwards from there. And almost effortlessly, in the not so distant future, you might have twice what you have today. So we started out with one unit doing kind of, okay, proof of concept. And we had an employee that we kind of dedicated, said, you're gonna run this thing. And we said, whatever time you're not spending operating what you already have, you're going to spend that time bringing another unit online. So I'll say that a second time, whatever time you're not spending operating the business, you're going to spend growing the business. And this is like a super easy kind of like rule of thumb for managing and growing a business. And then when you get to a point where someone is spending 100% of their time operating the business and not growing the business, well, it's time to add an employee or figure out if you maybe have an employee who's not being very efficient, what can you do to streamline their time? and we're checking in with that employee daily to see, well, how much time are they spending in operations versus how much time are they spending growing the business, and we'd want to grow that business. Let's say we want to get that first unit online in 30 days, and that second unit online in 15 days, and that third unit online in 7 days, and then start to hone in. What's like the minimum amount of time it takes to bring a unit online? It feels like, imagine an ideal universe where you had just everything at your fingertips. Imagine you just had this magic warehouse with one of everything you need. What's like the minimum amount of time it would take to bring a unit online? Probably like a day or two if you had enough hands, enough people, and enough stuff. And so we just started, kind of making our cadence for bringing a unit online, shorter and shorter. And then we'd order, one of something to bring that first unit online, see if we like it, take it for a test drive. Okay, we kind of like that concept, but the quality wasn't quite what we expected, or we get some, negative feedback from guests about, okay, well, we'll try something similar, it's different, or we'll try something, and we just hate it. Okay, well, we need to get the opposite of that for, for the next dish, the next, coffee maker, whatever. Okay, we like this. We think this is a standard product. We're going to buy two of them. Okay, now we're going to buy four of them. Okay, now we're going to buy eight of them. And so organically, we built out a warehouse that had every bed, every bed frame. We use the exact same sleeper sofa, the exact same bed. We got everything from Costco and Amazon and stuff like that. So it was very easy to manage that supply chain. And we tried to make things as absolutely homogenous as possible. And then by the end, when we were really bringing things online quickly, there was one week where we got a certificate of occupancy for we added a floor to a building, and so it was all vacant, and we wanted to make those units start producing revenue as fast as humanly possible. It takes a long time to get new units to produce revenue in long-term rental. Could take 6 months or a year to fill all those units up. That's just the nature of that business. Once people are in there, it's very sticky revenue, but the lead time, the startup time is very high to get them producing revenue. Short-term rentals is the opposite. You can just kind of bring it online and it starts producing revenue instantly. So we said, okay, we're going to pre-stage 20 units worth of stuff because we know the exact couch, bed, end table, television we like from the first 30 units that we brought up incrementally. And then we're just going to get all of our staff. We have about 50 or 60 full-time employees here in Rochester, and we're just going to have a big day. And we're just going to have like all the units. We can't do anything in the units until we get a certificate of occupancy from the local municipality, and we're going to go furnish those units. We're going to have photos already taken of the units and stuff like that. We're going to be ready to go. The listings are staged up; they're just not live yet. And we brought about 20 units online in, I don't know, 4 6 days, something like that. So that's what that process looked like, and I think anyone can follow that same algorithm. Now your cadence is probably going to look different than ours, because remember, we can't profitably run a small business. We can only profitably run a big business. We really need, I would say 50 units is like our minimum, because we have to have enough work for multiple full-time employees to stay busy. And really, if we had, 100 or 1,000, we could operate those much more profitably than we could operate 50. But it was a race to kind of viability, to like a financial break even for us. Whereas most people, it's, you can profitably operate one, two, three, four, five, and it might even become less profitable for you to scale up if you're kind of like a solopreneur, which I think is very common in that industry. But you can still follow all of those same kind of algorithms that I just mentioned in how we were able to scale that business quickly. And I've had the privilege to lead a large number of businesses to 7 8 figures. I've helped or created 3 different 9 figure businesses. So this is something I'm very very skilled at just by virtue of experience. And it's the same pattern. You see it over and over again. So that growth, it's a formula. It's not, there is a mindset component for sure. And I'm very woo. My wife and I, we lead breath work and guided meditation, all kinds of stuff like that. I'm a very, very spiritual person, but I think there is a formula for success in business and for growth in business. And you can just run that formula in any business, in any profit making endeavor.
So good. So good. Okay, so something you mentioned, and I just wrote it down. I believe a lot of our listeners are hesitant because they don't want to get it wrong, right? What if there's negative feedback? What if it's the wrong toaster? What if it's the wrong coffee maker? I think sometimes you just got to start. You got to do something, because at the end of the day, if you wait around for the perfect coffee maker, you're waiting around for the perfect toaster, you're not going to know.
Mhm.
And so once you start, you put yourself out there, your guests are very able and capable to let you know all about yourself. I just got my first 2-star review this week. I'm still like, I'll figure it out, but
You're doing better than us.
nevertheless.
We got one of those like our first week because we refused to purchase a dresser on Craigslist for a guest. It was very interesting. That was like it
Okay.
was in our first month of operation that happened.
What? That is
It
not.
was yep. He's like, "I don't think you've put enough furniture in here. You need to go buy a new dresser to add to the unit." And we're like, "No, we're not gonna do that." He's like, "Oh, it's only like $20 for a dresser on Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist. Here's a few links." He sent
Here's
us
a
links
few
to
links,
use
not the
furniture
links.
for us to purchase and install in the unit. We're like, "Yeah, we're not gonna do that. And there's already a chest of drawers in there, and you're a single person. Like, how much clothing did you bring?" And
Right. What are you planning, sir?
yep, and his name was Jimbo, like, as I didn't even know
Come
that was a real name. I
on.
thought that was like a name that only characters in cartoons had or something like that, and, yeah, so it was like one of our first reviews was a two-star review. I don't even know why we got the 2nd star. He was so upset about this that we would not buy
You
used
got the
furniture
second
to his
star.
preference.
Oh, I love it. So let's talk about that for a moment. Let's talk about embracing setbacks. Okay, I did not know that about you launching or helping 3 businesses to go to the 9-figure mark, guys. 9 figures for those sitting in the back, 9 figures. So, needless to say, being a business owner myself and owning 2 business, that comes with embracing some setbacks. Am
Oh,
I
yes.
right? Or
Oh, yes.
can you share a few moments or a
Yeah.
moment when things didn't go as planned during your expansion, and how did you address it? What did you learn from it?
Absolutely. So in all of life, men make plans and God laughs. And I think that all the most successful people I've ever known, they live in a state of flow. And for feminine listeners, that might feel like a very natural thing. For masculine listeners, that might seem a little strange. But you just need to embrace the opportunities that God or the universe or the marketplace bring to you. Like all of those forces are so wise, so much wiser than I could ever be. I can't tell you how many incredible opportunities were brought to me by God or the marketplace. And I think most people, they see success and failure as this like spectrum. And if you try really hard, you can maybe work your way up to the success end of the spectrum instead of the failure end of the spectrum. But no, no, no. It's not a bi-directional spectrum. It's a vector, it's an arrow, it's a one-way trip, and there's about 10 stops of failure on that journey to ultimately arrive at success. No one just walks onto the court and just is amazing at basketball. Like they're gonna mess up a lot of times before they find success. And we try really hard to celebrate learning. I think that by definition, those who refuse to quit can never fail. I'll say that a second time. By definition, those who refuse to quit can never fail. And really, you never do fail as long as you choose to learn. The only way you can fail is to not get the outcome you're looking for and then just keep doing the same thing over and over again. That's the definition of stupidity. So we had some guesses about what furniture would do well, what units would do well, what buildings would do well, and we knew that they were just guesses. And we would call it, we'd say, we have a hypothesis. We're going to test this hypothesis. We would, very humbly walk into this thing, and we would be really deliberate in setting those expectations with our staff so they wouldn't become demoralized about going back and forth. So, for example, we had these class A, really beautiful units, these urban loft units that we just spent a fortune on, and they did poorly. They struggled. And that was because they were lofts, they were urban lofts, like 30-foot floor to ceiling glass and, just like amazing knockout units. But they'd sleep 4 people, a bed plus a sleeper sofa. And on the Airbnb algorithm, all the algorithms, they would compete directly with a hotel room, right? With a 2 queen suite or whatever. And in our market, there's a massive number of hotel rooms to service Mayo Clinic guests. And then our larger occupancy apartment units tend to do the best. So like 2 and 3 bed units, our most successful units are like a 2 bed, 2 bath that can sleep 6 very comfortably. And that I never would have guessed that would have been the most successful unit type. And we would have to just keep checking the numbers every week and every month. We'd go back and check the numbers and see how is this doing, and it would often violate my expectations. Well, we worked so hard at that one, and we felt so confident, and the first one was so successful. Then the second, third, and fourth failed. Well, apparently that first one was just a fluke, and we just have to move on. And eventually we started to consolidate our portfolio. So we would defurnish this unit, this unit, this unit, and then use those furnishings to go spin up a new unit that was of a more successful type, or that was in a more successful building or a more successful location. And we would maximize the efficiency of our failure. We would maximize the efficiency of our failure. So we wouldn't wind up that furnished unit until we had secured a long-term lease on that unit. So it would never go a day without generating revenue. We would have long-term tenants moving in like the day after we defurnish it. Then we would take the next vacant unit of that unit type that's very successful, that was not very successful as a long term, but was successful as a short term, and we'd go furnish that unit and see, can we reproduce that success? Because sometimes you can't reproduce that success, and you're never quite sure why, and you can't plan it. You literally just the market and the universe dictate these things. And when you live in a state of flow and humor and embrace of that unpredictability, of that variability, and you learn to ride the wave, to surf and not to swim, you can be extraordinarily successful. The things that have propelled us to success today, never in a million years would I have predicted them. The things that the deals that have made us the most money, the units that have been the most profitable, never in a million years would I have predicted them. Like we have the former City Hall of Rochester. We own that building. It's now an apartment building. These units have terrazzo floors, have quadruple crown molding, have marble wainscoting floor. I mean, this building is a temple, built only the way government buildings were built a century ago. Just an incredible building. And we have these units that are the former City Hall of Rochester, and they're 30-foot ceilings. Like just it's like the nicest accommodation in Rochester, bar none. In that same building, we have a unit that's a 2 bed, 2 bath, but it's like kind of a ho hum unit. That 2 bed, 2 bath would outperform the loft unit. And never in a million years could I have predicted that, but just people pay a premium for the higher occupancy, and there's just enough users, enough people going into the platforms looking for 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and like the drop down menus. And that loft unit, even though it would sleep 4 people, it had like a sleeper sofa and a bed, and it was 1.5 baths. It wasn't 2 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. And I never in a million years would have predicted that. We would get more views on that loft unit than any other short term rental in our entire market. Like our Airbnb account manager would be like, man, this thing's off the chart. And then people wouldn't book it because it just didn't check the box that they were looking for. So you just have to lean into that uncertainty to fail forward, to fail fast, to fail efficiently, to fail fun, and to know that countless number of failures lie between you and success. It's not a spectrum where you're, somewhere between success and failure. You have to push fast through failure to get to success. It's just a part of the process that you have to learn to enjoy.
So now you've helped thousands, hundreds to thousands. We'll go ahead and manifest thousands of passive investors. What do you think then that they get wrong when they think about real estate or scaling real estate at large?
Yeah, great question. So we have what I would call like a kind of like pure passive investment options that we use to serve investors, where like our Secure Freedom Fund that we'll have open here shortly. It's not open right now, but it will be soon. You can get a 10% fixed rate of return. So it's like a bond or a CD, but your after tax rate of return is like triple, quadruple what you would get from like a treasury bond or something like that today. And that's like a very passive investment. One of the most common mistakes that I see investors make all the time is they invest in real estate in an active way, but then they try to make it a passive investment. So they'll go buy a long-term rental in Ohio, 1,000 miles away from where they live, with a third-party property manager. They've never visited the property. In fact, they might even brag about that, about how they have all this passive income. And in my experience, long-term, short-term rental, it's a living, breathing thing. It's an organism. This is going to sound, talk about woo. I will go visit our properties. I will touch them. I will lay hands upon them. I will talk to them, and I'll say, "What do you need, Nicholas?" My name is Nicholas, so we have a building named the Nicholas. What do you need, Oliver? That's a building we own next to Nicholas. What do you need right now? How are you doing? I will touch the building. I will talk to the building. I will just sit in silence in the unit, like if we have a unit that's vacant for a long time, we don't know why. I will just go sit in that unit and just be, and just try and figure out, why do we have vacancy here? Why are we having trouble? We just bought a really challenging property, one of the most challenged properties in our entire community, and I'm there on site every day. I'm just there. I am just radiating my energy helping that community get to where it needs to go. It's a full contact sport. It is hands-on, and when you try to do those things passively, that's when real tragedy occurs. That's when, we have people, we do a lot of coaching. My wife Elaine has a coaching program for female physicians, and a lot of them are in real estate, and we do, anyone's welcome to book a free 15-minute call with Elaine or I. Will just give you some free advice or whatever if you're struggling. So we talk to thousands of people trying to just help them with a tough spot that they're in. And most of those problems arise when they are treating that real estate investment like it's a passive investment, and it really isn't, where they're trying to self manage on the other side of the country, but not really all in on that. I think that a lot of investors are looking for what I call a Tamagotchi investment. I don't know if you are you familiar with those little toys from the '90s?
Yes. Yes. Yes,
Yeah,
yes, yes.
where
Little
you,
buttons.
like, can feed it, you spend, like, 5 minutes a day kinda playing with it, and then you can just, like, neglect it for a while, and it's not gonna die, and a lot of people, they like to, check in on their property, once a year, once a quarter. They like to look at, whatever. They wanna just a little bit of interaction, but they don't want the burden, the responsibility of actually having to love and care for that thing,
Mm.
and so they don't. And that's when bad things happen. That's when you get train wreck tenants and train wreck guests and train wreck turnovers that wipe out all your cash flow for the year. It'll happen over and over again, and that investor will say, "Ah, I have such terrible luck with real estate investment." No, you have been neglecting your investment. You've been calling it a passive investment when it is not. If you're trying to invest in short-term rentals, that's much higher touch than long-term rentals, which is much higher touch than, say, like owning a triple net commercial building, which is much higher touch than, say, investing in our Secure Freedom Fund, with a 10% fixed. So you just have to be vividly aware of whether or not
Mm.
that's actually a passive investment. And for the record, there is no such thing, I think, as like a truly passive investment. Even if you have some money sitting in a low overhead index fund, I guess I sure hope you're checking on that thing from time to time to make sure that, your account's still open. You're able to log in. You're able to take stuff out if you need to. You're able to get your tax documents on time. You're at least spending an hour a year working on your taxes and stuff like that for it. So it's all leveraged income, and I think that everyone should have as much leverage in their life as they possibly can. Time leverage, capital leverage, leveraging your experience, your connections, your love and drive and hunger to give and serve. You should be leveraging all those things as much as you can. Uh, and all of the great mistakes get made when you try and put it into that passive bucket when maybe it's not.
Where do I begin? You are preaching, my friend, and you know what? My family and I, we pray over our properties, and so that really resonates with me when you say you just go in there and you be. I think you go
I pray for
even.
my properties too. I just try to sanitize that a little bit for the audience.
Yeah, no, no, I'm a God girl, so um, love me or hate me for that. But nevertheless, no, that's so good. I don't think we've done the practice of just being, which I think, oh my gosh, that is so good. And in the green room, I think I was joking a little bit as I was, having the conversation with you, and I was like, Nick, I haven't worked so hard for passive income in my life, But yeah, you're right. It is some work, even vetting. If you're going to work with someone like Nick and Elaine and their amazing fund that they're launching, by the time this is recorded, it's going to be live. You still want to find out who they are. And this conversation, part of it is you finding out who they are. And we're going to add all of their links in the show note. Definitely do your due diligence, but yeah, doing a little bit of due diligence, that does take some work. So that's the active part of passive investing for sure. But skin in the game. Skin in the game. Nick, but what about I have a property manager and I have the property in Ohio and I'll check in with him next year. Don't Isn't my property manager going to take care of everything?
It's kind of a trite saying, but you do have to manage the manager. You don't want to be in such communication with them that you annoy them. You don't want to be on that end of the spectrum. At that point, you might as well just manage it yourself. But you should be checking in with that manager somewhat often. You should be looking at you should be getting monthly reports every month, or there's a portal you log into to get those reports. If there's anything that's on that report that you need to discuss with the manager, you should have that discussion. If there's large expenses that come up, you should be having that discussion. If there's tough turns and everything, you should be auditing. So this is something that I see very few investors do. How's your listing? How recently have you reproduced your customer's journey? Because like Airbnb, they changed their algorithm all the time. They change the way the listings work so
Every
that we
quarter,
had
it's
like
like the winter update, the summer
Mhm.
update. Every single time they make an update, you should probably revisit your listing for sure.
That's right.
Because I got to tell you, we've caught some things after every single update. So thank you for that reminder.
Yep.
Goodness.
Absolutely. So you should be in communication with your manager as often as they would like you to be, and be a servant leader. So I have the privilege to lead. There's hundreds of people that are doing something for me somewhere right now today, and I check in with them constantly. I'll call them, I'll text them, I'll send a smoke signal, whatever their love language and preferred communication method is, and just say, "How are things going? Is there anything that you're stuck on? Is there anything that you need right now?" And it just opens the door for that communication. And when you're in regular communication, first of all, not only do they tell you what they need, but you can start to get a sense for the things that they need that they don't want to tell you. So maybe, that couch is looking real tired and it's a $10,000 couch and they know it's holding you back and you're getting some bad reviews, but they don't want to tell you because, that it's just such an expensive thing that they don't want to have to tell you about. So they're just going to let your listing kind of languish. Well, you can sense that when you're in regular communication with them. You have some rapport, you have some social equity with them that they can cash in, that they can voice concerns and objections, even if you are kind of their boss, so to speak. So I think that you need to just be in constant communication as often as they desire, not too much, and make sure that they know that you are always available as a resource that they can leverage, and just always be asking. I check in with my team every day, and I say, what'd you do last week or yesterday? What are you doing this week or today? And is there anything that you are stuck on? Those are the three things. And from a top level, we get together with our team every week, and they all are required to submit an anonymous survey on a scale of 1 to 10. How much energy do you have? How happy do you feel? And how valued do you feel in your work? And that's my key performance indicator for my company. So I know that if I'm checking with my people constantly, one way or another, my customers will be taken care of. But every organization is an extension of the psychology of its leader. And I demand that my team provide an unreal level of customer service to our customers. Well, my team is my customer. They're my only real customer. And I know that if I'm constantly checking in with them, they're going to be constantly checking in with our customers and making sure that their needs are met as well.
So good. Goodness gracious. Oh my goodness, this has been just so enlightening, Nick. I feel like we can just keep chatting on and on and on. You've taught us business lessons, management lessons, operational lessons. Are you ready, my friend, for some rapid fire questions before
Let's
we
do
go?
it.
All right. Can you share a moment where you felt completely burnt out and how you overcame it?
So a lot of people ask Elena, how do you do it all? You have to really focus on this Venn diagram. There's the things that you can control and the things that matter. And there's a sliver of intersection between those two. There's like 1% overlap on that Venn diagram between the things that matter and things that you can control. And the feeling of burnout, the feeling of stress, it is a result of you focusing on something that's not in that intersection. So, for example, maybe you're looking at the headlines and stressing out about tariffs and Trump and whatever. Those things matter, but you can't control them. So you should probably maybe endeavor to be aware of them, but probably not. It's probably not serving you to put any focus on that whatsoever. And then other people they go to the other side and they focus intensely on something they can control because it kind of gives them like a positive feedback loop, but it's not something that matters. And these people, they have a hobby that they take way too seriously, or they're way too into some game or whatever it is. And that's because they know that if they sit down and play that game or go do that hobby, that they're going to get a specific outcome that's very much within their control. Meanwhile, some portion or many portions of their life are burning to the ground. And that's a coping mechanism that they have. It takes a lot of discipline and honesty to focus on that 1% intersection between the things that matter and the things that you can control. So, we could have some sort of financially disastrous thing happen to our whole portfolio, to our third of $1 billion portfolio, if interest rates go way up and stuff. But it doesn't serve anyone for me to focus on that. And here's another thing that is kind of brutal. There's very little I can do to serve a guest to make our short-term rental line of business perform better, right? Because there's too many of them. So really the only thing I can do is just lean into our people. I can check in with the people that run our short-term rental line of business. I can meet with them, I can check in on them, I can look at our key performance indicators and help them do better. That's really all I can do. And for me to spend any time perseverating on the things that either don't matter or are outside of my control, that is where stress lives. Stress, by the way, is a righteous thing. It's an adaptive thing. Stress, like why do you stub why do you get pain when you stub your toe? It's your body's way of telling you to stop doing that thing, that you are harming yourself with that behavior. And psychological pain, it exists for a reason. It's adaptive. It's your brain and your body's way of saying stop doing that thing. And when you are focusing on something that either doesn't matter outside of your control, that will manifest itself as feelings of depression, anxiety, burnout, and you need to stop doing that thing. And if you stop doing that thing that's making you feel that way, you'll feel really great. And that's one of the challenges with most of our modern approaches uh, to how we treat people's souls, to how we treat people's minds. We give them analgesics, right? We make the pain go away. No, that pain is what it's supposed to be a valuable diagnostic tool, or worse, we give someone an identity. We give them a diagnosis and say, oh, well, you're ADHD. I don't know if you noticed, but I'm a very high energy person. I'm sure I tick every single box on the ADHD spectrum. I choose to make that a strength and not a weakness. So thankfully, well, I actually do have a diagnosis, but thankfully, I choose not to embrace that diagnosis as a liability. I embrace it as a strength. So if you're listening to this and you're feeling burnt out, you're feeling stress about things, you're feeling anxiety, just sit down, just literally draw those circles. What are the things that matter? What are the things that you can control? And what's that 1% intersection between them that you can focus relentlessly on and move the needle in your life? And when you do that, you will feel amazing. Doesn't matter how much is burning down in different parts of your life. When you move the needle on the things that matter, like the volume gets turned down on all those other things. It just kind of fades away out of focus, and you feel really good about yourself.
I don't know if you can see this. It's not letting it see it. I've got the Venn diagram and the little gray
Awesome.
in the middle is the overlap. Things you can control and things that matter. So good. Oh my gosh, you just dropped a whole bar. What are let's put it this way. Are there any books, podcasts, apps, tools that you're using currently? We need some real-time information that you're loving that's helping you out with your business or your life, something that you would highly recommend.
Sure. So my wife and I are huge Tony Robbins people. If you've never done a Tony Robbins event, I can't recommend enough that you do that. We'll be at Unleash the Power Within and Date with Destiny and Business Mastery. We've done his platinum program and stuff. We credit Tony with probably half of everything that we have today. Lots and lots and lots of value in the kind of coaching stuff that he offers, and most of his stuff is free. He gives away 99% of his value for free. You can do free events on you know Zoom and Facebook with him. The live events are expensive, but the value is there. So I try to start every day. I try to fall asleep to humor. So I've got like a little Bluetooth headset that I have as I'm falling asleep, and I try to fall asleep to humor to curate my dreams in my unconscious mind. Or I might listen to some peaceful motivational stuff like Jim Rohn, and then I try to wake up to inspiration. And so as I'm like showering, I'll be playing some Tony Robbins. So hearing Tony, shouting at me to get out there and conquer the day, and I'm amazing, and I have this light within me. So that's always a staple. My wife and I, we do tons of retreats and mindset stuff, and we lead those retreats and stuff like that. So we spend about 25% of our waking hours, I would say, producing or consuming coaching of one sort or another. And in my experience, that's the case for most top performers, which seems crazy. It seems crazy you'd spend that much of your time, but as you lead a bigger and bigger life, if you get like 1% more effective, that has this multiplier against say $350 million portfolio. So it becomes increasingly important for you to get 1% better. So those are a few recommendations that I would have.
Love it. What's the craziest real estate story you've ever heard of or experienced yourself?
Oh man, so how real do you want to get on this podcast
Let's
here?
get real.
Okay, sure.
Let's do it.
So we do long-term rentals. So I grew up in Section 8 housing, and I grew up in a violent environment. Never met my father. My mom had a traumatic brain injury when I was 6 years old, and I was kind of the man of the house at a very young age. And like my roommate was shot, and I've been robbed at gunpoint and stuff as a young child. And so unfortunately, I'm very familiar with that environment, and I don't think it's right that children grow up in an environment like that. And so we're a very mission driven organization. Much of our portfolio is stuff that we purchase that has a problem. And the way multifamily housing works, it's kind of interesting. People don't talk about this, but 97% of all crime is committed by people who live in rental housing. So homeowners don't commit crime, and that's the vast majority of people in the United States. So we're already the pie chart there is already getting pretty small. And in general, the way Keystone habits work, uh, if you tell someone that they can't do crime in this location, you'd think that they would go do crime in another location. That's not how people who live in that world think. To them, selling drugs or whatever it is that they do, it's just a vocation. It's just a way to earn money. And think about if you were like a barber and you were told by the police or the landlord that you can't cut hair in that location anymore. You might say, well, I'm going to go try my hand at like waiting tables. So this is going to sound kind of crazy to your listeners, but crime in the United States largely only exists because landlords allow it to. Because there's a passive investor running an apartment building or a single family home somewhere that just says, hey, the rent checks show up and there's some weird stuff happening, but I'm not quite sure what. And it's not really my business. So they turn a blind eye to it. And it turns into a shopping mall of tragedy. Have you ever noticed how like one car dealership's always located next door to another car dealership? That's the theory of agglomeration in business. And again, these illegal enterprises, they're just businesses. That's all they are. They're profit making, enterprises of selling drugs or prostitution. So when someone is allowed to sell drugs out of a unit in an apartment building, well, very quickly their next door neighbor is going to the prostitution business. And if that goes unchecked, then human trafficking comes in and so on and so forth until you can imagine like different bays in a shopping mall. Each unit has their specialty that they offer, and so we love to serve communities that have problems. And we just bought one 6 days ago. It's called Meadow Park Apartments. It's in our Secure Freedom Fund. This is probably one of the most challenged apartment communities in our area. And there was a murder there a week ago, which is really unusual. Like a couple murders a year happen in our entire, city, and one of them was at this community. And what do you do? Do you pull out of the contract? What do you do? So we've got our team there. We've got a full court press. We have like 20 people there because we are making a statement. We have the police there. People don't realize it, but the police don't just like go where they're needed. There's not enough resources for that. So we have to pay $100 an hour for a police officer to be there 12 hours a day. We've identified the units where the crime is kind of coming from. And we just have the police kind of like shining their spotlight on those units all day and all night. And they'll get the point very quickly. People tend to conform to the boundaries that are set for them. Yesterday, I got a call because the officer that we were paying to have there, he's patrolling, and he heard someone coughing in a garage. There's like 120 storage units that went with the property, and that homeless person barricaded himself in the garage. And we could like harm him if we were opening the door like a can opener. So we like went into the adjacent units and started like breaking through the sheetrock, in the adjacent units and stuff to like break into the unit like the Kool-Aid Man or something like that. So that was my Tuesday, was working on that problem, that community. There's all manner of tragedy and illegal activity at that community, and there's a mosque there and a halal grocer. There's a large Somali community in our municipality. They're all Muslim, and so every manner of racism, discrimination, bigotry, it happens on that corner. This is the epicenter of violence, of hate in our community. And we say, not on our watch. Those are not things that happen in our community. We're going to go in, we're going to repair these units are full of cockroaches and bed bugs, and we've already brought in, we call it the roach rodeo. We brought in, there's like a dozen pest control specialists and like 10 of our team, because we have to like lightly break into the unit sometimes because people don't want people with pesticides coming in. We have to communicate how you keep those pests out. We have to make sure that everyone's safe the whole way, where there's police escort. 90 days from now, there will be no crime in that community. 90 days from now, there will be no crime in that community. Those things turn around really quick when you just have a person who shows up and says, not on my watch. And some scary things are going to happen between now and then. We're going to have an abundance of physical security. The police are going to be there the whole time. My team is literally going door to door today, giving out lease violations and stuff like that, saying, hey, if you don't follow the rules, if you're breaking the law, if you don't keep your place clean and cockroach free, you can't stay. There's no judgment in our heart for what you do. There's a drug rehab, nearby that we support. There's an alcohol rehab program that we support. We'll help you dial the phone. We'll help you get a ride. Whatever we can do to serve you. But you can't do crime here. You can't do drugs here. You can't do violence here. You can't do cockroaches here. There's a standard of conduct, and 90 days from now, there will be no more crime there. And that crime won't go next door. That crime will just disappear because there's a landlord there who cares. It's hard work. It's inglorious work. It's somewhat dangerous work. It's work that matters, though. We don't need more money. Lane and I, we're set for life. We've been blessed beyond imagination. But I can tell you, it leaves me very motivated to get up in the morning and help the kids who I used to be. How the heck did I go from growing up in Section 8 housing to owning a third of $1 billion in real estate, just by the grace of God. And so it's a very beautiful thing to be able to give that back and to lead people in my team in the charge to do so, and to see that transformation happen. It's so visceral and so jarring. And literally, when the police department found out we were buying the community, they cheered, because they get together every day and there's like 50 police officers talking about, and they're like Black Swans buying Meadow Park, and everyone's like, yeah, this is amazing, because this community, that apartment community, costs our municipality probably millions of dollars a year in emergency services. The police, fire, EMS, police are there every day. That's very expensive resources. Um, so that's my story for you. That we just happen to be, we're on day 6 right now, so we are in the thick of it. And I was breaking through walls yesterday trying to find, uh, uh, homeless people that were barricaded in our storage units. So, yeah, that's our crazy story for the week.
Not the Kool-Aid man. Goodness gracious.
I'm a
That
pretty good guy, and I do
resonates.
not go through the wall very easily.
That resonates so much. Being a little girl from Haiti, raised in the urban center of Miami. Nick, this episode is so fire. Thank you so much for breaking it down and showing us what's possible and the possibility of community impact in this space. Tell the audience, how can we best connect with you?
Anyone here can go to blackswanteam.com. You can click on connect. Anyone here is welcome to block 15 minutes on my calendar or my wife Elaine's calendar. Yeah, anyone here can go to securefreedomfund.com. That's our latest fund. You can jump on the wait list there for the next time we have availability in that fund, where you get a 10% fixed rate of return. But whatever we can do to provide you with value, if there's anything we can help with, feel free to reach out, and we would love to serve you so much.
Guys, be sure to check out those links in the show notes, because if that didn't light you up, I don't know what will. Dr. Rachel here, guys. Stay inspired, keep investing in your freedom, and I will see you all next time. Thank you again. Appreciate you, Nick.